My name is Nick, and I'm a senior, but I'll be student teaching next spring. So thank you for being here.
See you again, Nick.
And Kelsey.
Hi, I'm Kelsey. I'm also a senior, and I will be student teaching next fall. Thanks for taking time out of your day.
And John.
My name's John. I'll be student teaching this coming fall. Thank you for joining us this morning.
All right. So to begin, can you give us a brief background of your teaching experience? So where you're currently teaching, where you've taught in the past.
Yes, so I'll try to not talk too much about this, but I went to Winona State University. Got my degree in K-12 physical education, state physical education, and coaching minor. I student taught in the South Washington County School District 833, which is where I'm teaching now. I student taught in the spring of 2009. I actually lived in Hudson with my friend while I did that. After that was completed, I interviewed a couple places. I put in a ton of applications, got denied in all of them until literally 2 days before the school year started in my district that I currently work in. Got a random interview, got it. I got my job started as like a 0.4 or 0.5, which is part-time. And then as we got closer to school, that turned into a 0.8, which Miss Kristen can probably tell you more about that stuff later, or you already know. Anyway, my first year in 2009, the fall, I crossover taught between 3 different schools. So like 2 schools, I literally taught one class for 30 minutes, and then I went to another school. And then I was at another school for, I think, 4 or 5 classes. I got cut. And the reason I'm telling you this is the world that we live in, and this is kind of how things go. And if you're mentally and physically prepared for that, I feel like it will help you down the road. I got cut just because when you're not tenured, or you're a first, second, or third year teacher, that's what they do. And if they need you, they'll call you back or interview you again. Anyway, I got cut. The next year, I was at 2 separate schools crossing over, again in a 0.8 role. So I taught 4 classes in one school and 4 in another. Got cut again. Didn't look like I was going to get rehired in the same district. I actually interviewed a couple other places and got to the final 2 of each interviews. But then I got a call back from my district saying they wanted to interview for an opening. And long story short, I ended up getting a job at the school I'm still at now, which is Liberty Ridge Elementary School, which is where Nick visited a few times. And I've been there since 2011 or 2012. And this is my 12th year of teaching. And Liberty Ridge is K through 5 physical education. And something cool about my time there, our school's so big, we have a preschool and kindergarten only site right across the street from us. So one building is 1st through 5th grade, and another building is all preschool and kindergarten. And I'm sure later I'll talk about my experiences teaching PE at the only preschool and kindergarten building. But yeah, in a nutshell, this is my 12th year. I think I try to count every time I do something like this, and I don't even know if I'm correct with my years, because honestly, I don't care how many years I've taught. Like, I'm never counting because I just love my job so much. It's like all year to me. So, yeah, hopefully that answers those questions. I could jump into the next one too, Madeline, with about philosophy, or, sorry, I'm looking at my phone as the questions. So on my website, it talks about Proud PE. So 4 years ago is when I finally got into a super comfortable and confident position or state of mind with where I was at Liberty Ridge. So for the first 5 or 6 years I was there, I team taught with 3 to 4 other people. And I was the young person. And as many of you probably felt when you go to all these schools or you've had your experiences in the field, you don't want to, talk too much or get too invested or bring up too many ideas because you don't want it to come off the wrong way, right? In my first 4 or 5 years, I had that same mentality because I didn't want to ruffle feathers or make people seem like they were doing something wrong, even though I wanted to try so many more new and what I thought was going to be very engaging activities instead of doing things that I have seen done when I was in elementary school, right? So after 4 or 5 years, one person ended up leaving the building, and that person was the one that made me really nervous about bringing up ideas. And she left. That kind of made me a little more confident, like the team might listen to some of my ideas. And that's when I started to actually learned about social media and PE at River Falls Conference. I don't remember what year it was, but you probably know Joey Fife. He's the physicaleducator.com guy. He's incredible. He makes some unbelievable resources and advocates like nobody's job for us. But anyway, he talks about Twitter at the River Falls workshop, and I signed up. And after that, my ideas, I couldn't hold them in anymore. I just had to go with it, right? And the greatest thing that happened to me was that same year I was asked to teach at the preschool and kindergarten only PE building. And most people that have had in the past were super, angry or bummed about it because they just felt like, oh, I got to go babysit kindergartners. Well, I was super excited to do it because I was going to be by myself and I could do all these different ideas that I've been craving to do for years, right? So when I went there, trust me, I failed a ton. But throughout that experience, especially the first 2 to 3 months where I did fail trying all these new ideas, it reminded me that you can't find yourself and you can't find your practice or your philosophies without trying things that deep down in your heart or your brain you want to try, with the worry that you might fail. Because 2 things happen. One, it teaches you that it's okay for kids to see you fail and tell kids that, hey, I made a mistake. I shouldn't have done it this way. Or you're teaching your 3rd class and you're telling your 3rd class of the day, hey, I made a huge mistake with our first 2 classes. We were doing it like this, and now I'm going to try it like this. And it just opens up this opportunity for you to create solid, connected relationships with kids. And then it also tells you, like, the greatest things in your teaching can come from you failing in your practice. And that's okay, especially if you're doing it in front of new teammates or your superior teachers, your student teaching. But anyway, long story short, I moved from the kindergarten building back to the main building where all the teammates were, and I was done worrying about what they might think if I tried something new. And that's when I started to get the projector screen out. That's when I started to try ideas about using video instruction on top of my real-time instruction. And then that's when I learned and found out how to create GIFs in your teaching through the projector screen, and that revolutionized my teaching. And what started to happen was, it was a ton of work at first, but my teammates started to realize, man, this stuff is awesome because it helps us be better teachers. The kids are definitely much more engaged, and it's fun, right? And you're creating resources that you can reuse over and over again. So though it's a lot of work at the beginning, as you go forward, it's actually easier for you to connect with kids rather than worry so much about what you're going to do each day. But anyway, to get to my proud PE statement or philosophy, basically in all my years of teaching, I've been kind of just shocked and disappointed at times watching all kinds of people kind of go through the motions with their PE teaching, roll out the ball, as I'm sure some people have said. And the worst part was, anytime a teacher would have to get observed by a principal once or twice or 3 times a year, all of a sudden they brought out their best stuff, right, for that specific observation. And it drove me crazy. It's like, why are you doing or bringing all that energy and passion into one lesson, and the whole rest of the year you're just kind of going through the flow and being content having a job? So I started to think to myself, why does it have to be that way? Or why are there people in my profession that act like that 98% of the year, and then when they think one person's watching, they turn it up a notch? To me, being proud of my PE means my doors, my windows are open to anybody that is willing to look in, hear, click links, engage with what I'm doing, because they know that I'm giving my very best to all of my kids every single day, no matter who's watching or who's around. And if you're proud enough to have your doors, your windows, and your screens, and all of that open with your practice and PE instruction, you're doing it right. So basically, the reason I have it on my website is I want people to take ideas from the things that I share or the things that people see me do in person, and allow them to be confident and comfortable saying, I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to do this stuff because it's going to make me a better teacher. I might stumble, I might fall, I might fail, but when it's all said and done, I'm going to be so proud of what I'm doing. I'm going to be willing to share it with the world, including opening my doors in my own school and letting people see what their kids are doing when they get dropped off.
That's a super cool philosophy. And I think that's very impressive how far you've come in your career, and how you've been able to like express your ideas and your activities that you want to do. So moving on to the second one.
Yeah, go ahead.
How do you define advocacy?
So I was thinking hard about this when you sent me these questions. And to me, advocacy is exactly what I just said. It is being so proud in what you do every day as a PE teacher that you want to show it to the world. You're comfortable, everybody's seeing it, hearing it, no matter what. You don't want to hide it. You don't want to worry about what people think about what you're doing every single day with your kids. You don't have to worry about your kids, your students going home and saying something negative about their PE experience. That's the best, in my opinion, the best advocacy you could possibly be is to be so overwhelmingly passionate, purposeful about your PE instruction. And if you do that day in and day out, that's the best dang advocacy you guys can give, honestly. And what's going to happen if you continue to do that, you're going to continue to grow. And you're going to continue to be confident. And you're going to continue to love what you're doing, right? And then that's where all these other opportunities to advocate for what you do come up. And that's with doing, small events like my school 4 or 5 years ago wanted to do this fun run, right? Which is a fundraiser, but they basically wanted us to run the whole thing. And I was like, okay, we're not going to get any credit for this, and we're not going to get the amount of money that we probably should for our program from this fundraiser. But you know what? This is an opportunity for our team and our profession to showcase to the world what we do every single day and how impactful it is. And that's exactly what we did. We took it, we ran with it, we created amazing resources, we set up amazing experience for all these parents to come in and participate with their kids. And it's the highlight of our year at our school now. And every single time these parents and these families come, they have a positive interaction and memory of what they think PE is at our school and in general. Because to be honest with all you guys, a lot of your parents and a lot of older generation people have a negative connection to PE. And whenever they say gym class or gym teacher, to me, that just basically confirms that fact. Because when my kids are older, I want them to tell their kids, like, oh, what'd you do in PE today? Because it has a completely different connotation or connection emotionally and physically and mentally than gym teacher does. And I feel like you guys probably all feel that way too when you hear those words put together. And when you start to hear your kids say PE or physical education or phy-ed or even their parents, you know that you are advocating for your profession in a positive way.
That's awesome. I love that insight. So going off of that, can you give us examples of how you have advocated for your program?
Yes. So definitely the fun run and just, again, doing what we do best, which is, be passionate, purposeful with our PE, right? And proud of it. Other things that we do is in some schools you might student teach at, do this, and some might not. Jump rope or hard event, we don't do it anymore. But in the past, it was a great opportunity to get parents in the door, and see what it looks like and feels like to have quality PE with their kids in our school. Other opportunities, and again, something you don't have to do is letting your voice be heard on social media. Unfortunately, in the world of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram or whatever, I only do Twitter, so I don't know what else is happening out there. But there's negative reflections of our profession, right? There's people that are showing videos that it's just like they think is absolutely amazing, but in all reality, it's not advocating for quality PE, right? And I'm not saying you have to like bash any of these people. It's just me saying a way to advocate would be to, if you're able to, in a safe and approved way, like share your videos or experiences or your words of what you feel like is quality physical education. And when you're confident enough to do that and not worry about how many people might hit the like button or retweet button or whatever, that's a way to advocate. And if you're comfortable to share, just on social media, but with your friends and your family and etc. Another way is I send notes home to my kids every once in a while. Have like this generic card that says, "I notice you, I care about you, I want you to succeed. Thank you for doing that for others too." And on the back, I'll sometimes write a personal message to them. Sometimes it gets to their parents, and sometimes it doesn't. But either way, it's just an opportunity for those kids that are really quiet but always doing things the right way to know that I see you and I love what you're doing and I appreciate it and I want them to keep doing it. Other ways, the same way would be to take a second to shoot an email home to parents in the same way. Rather than writing the note to the kid, you directly email a parent and tell them a positive experience that you had with their child. And then it gets them curious about, wow, like I didn't even know my kid loved PE that much, or I didn't know that they loved that activity. Just, it plants these seeds that hopefully within your communities, harvest or grow more and more throughout. And for years, there's been a negative connection to PE at my school. And when certain people left and we started together as a team, there's just a standard now within our school and with our community of what the kids get when they walk through our gym doors. And that took a long, long, long time to do. But again, that's the greatest advocacy you do, is build something that you're so proud of. You want anybody to see it all the time. I'll look at some of these other questions. Again, like social media, following and reaching out. Don't be afraid to reach out to these people that you're seeing post awesome content and just ask them questions. I love it when people do that to me. Mm-hmm. Like it adds a little bit of time to my life or less sleep to my life, but like you shouldn't be bashful to do that. If you love what you're doing, reach out to somebody and ask them, "Hey, why did you do that?" Or would you be willing to share something with me so I can build off of it? That's another way that you can advocate, because not only is it you trying to move forward with your own practice, but it's igniting continued passion within those people. Like, wow, you really like that? And it makes them excited about continuing to get better at what they're doing, which again continues to advocate across the country or globe. How do my students advocate for me? That's great. So again, if they go home and talk about, or when their kids sit at the table and their parents ask, "What did you do today?" I want my kids talking about PE right away, right? I want them talking about what they did in PE because it was so engaging and not negative. That's the best application my kids could do. Second is again, sometimes I get sick of saying it, but classroom teachers still call my class gym class, and they have it on their schedule as gym class. And for the last 4 years, I've continued to email people and say very nicely, "Could you title and tell your kids they're coming to PE?" And sometimes, instead of talking to the classroom teachers, I'll plant little seeds with the kids and say, "Hey, will you remind your teachers that you're coming to PE and not gym?" So it's a little silly way to advocate or get your kids to advocate, but honestly, it goes along. I told this story a couple years ago at a convention or a workshop. In the summers, my students share like an after-school daycare program with other students from other schools in our district, right? And one day I was walking in to the gym to grab a piece of equipment to do something, as a coach. And one of my students said, "Hey, Mr. Spring, how you doing? How you doing?" And, I talked to the kid quick, and I walked by. And one of the other kids who doesn't go to my school, Liberty Ridge, said, who is that guy? And my student said, "Well, that's Mr. Spring, my PE teacher." And his friend said, "What's PE?" And then he immediately said, "It's physical education." And I stopped and I did a little fist bump or something. And I was like, that's exactly my ultimate goal, is for my kids to understand truly what I do. And it's not teach gym, it's teach PE or education. I mean, that's just if you get to that point where you hear words like that come out of your kids' mouths, they're advocating for you and they're advocating for what you do.
That's a super awesome story. Okay, we'll skip ahead because I know you have to leave in a couple minutes.
Yeah.
So can you share any tips or best practices for advocating?
Yeah, I think I touched on it a little bit. I know you know this because River Falls, their professors do an amazing job of, and so does Wisconsin Shape. Go to as many conferences and workshops as you possibly can. And I know you already do that because I see it. I'm jealous. Winona State did it well. They gave us opportunities to go to workshops, but the things you guys get to do, I wanted to go to Wisconsin Shape because I've heard so many amazing things. And anyway, continue to take advantage of those opportunities. And I know in the world we're living in, you can't do that physically, but it's amazing how many virtual conferences there are now, and everything's recorded. And just find that stuff, and don't get overwhelmed with how much there is, because there's so much. Find specific titles and just focus on those things first, right? And that's going to allow you to continue to be confident in what you want to get out of yourself as a teacher, and then where you want to focus, right? Because you can't do it all. There's so many things that you can get good at, but if you try to do all of them at once, it's just going to water everything down, right? 3 years ago or 4 years ago, when I was talking about how I learned how to make GIFs, I knew other parts of my practice were going to suffer. Other parts of my teaching were going to suffer, but I believed in it so much, and I wanted to go at it, that I focused on that only, and other things had to be put on the side. And I was willing to make that sacrifice because now we've created so many amazing digital lessons. It has allowed us to do other things that help us advocate, which is really focus on the social and emotional side of teaching and recognize kids in such a positive way that go home and they talk about things. And increasing our relationships and connections with our kids. Those things that happen now because we chose to do those other things and put in the hard work in the front, right? So just going back to what I said, find opportunities and find links and find virtual conference opportunities to continue to take in and go to, right? Second, I would say, like I said earlier, reach out to people. The best PE teachers in the country are super willing to share not just the resources, but why they do things. And don't feel like you're annoying people. And honestly, what's the worst that could happen? They don't respond. Oh well, let's move on with life, right? But you might realize, hey, person really wants to help me. They want me to advocate and be a great PE teacher so I can advocate through them, right? And if you do that, and it's just me and personal experience, make sure you use your manners. You have an intro where you're like, hey, how are you doing? This is where I'm from. I've seen what you're doing and it's amazing. And I want to pick your brain. And if you know what I'm saying? Don't just act like a consumer, hey, can I have this? Without any sort of engagement or social connection, right? Other ways is reach out to each other. When you're going through your student teaching experiences, especially now, and I don't even know what they're going to look like for you. Reach out to each other and see what works and what hasn't worked and what you're doing and what you're not doing. Because sometimes there's teachers, guys, that are so prideful that when they ask for help or reach out to other people, they feel like it makes them look weak. And to me, it makes you look strong. It honestly does. If you're willing to say, hey, I haven't taught juggling, and I see that you just did. Could you teach me how? I've done that in so many units. Like, people think that because they see a couple posts or something on Twitter or come visit, like, there's a lot of things I don't know how to teach very well, right? And I ask questions to people that teach well because I want to get better at what they're doing so I can be better for my kids.
That's a lot of great advice. And that kind of touches on the last one. But one last question that I wanted to ask is, I know you talked about earlier that one teacher that wasn't open to new ideas. So what advice would you give us for working with professionals who are not open to trying new things?
I'll try to do this as fast as I can. I love that last question. I saw that. So here's the story. Let's see here. 7 or however many years ago when I was crossover teaching, I was at this one building, and this young lady named Taylor LeMay, who was a senior at the local high school, was a TA in my building. I could tell deep down she wanted to do things and do it in the right, engaging, super fun way, and I'd always do the old things she did, even learning and growing up. Her and I connected, and I think she saw deep down in me what it truly looks like to be a quality PE teacher once you're 18. She went to college. 4 years later, 5 years later, we never talked. She reached out to me and says, hey, can I student teach with you? And I was like, yeah, let's go. I'd never had a student teacher. I just had a child or a second child. I don't even know. I was nervous about it. But anyway, I was like, let's go. Let's do this. And I feel like she asked me because she saw deep down, like, it's not about me, it's about quality PE, and she wanted to be a part of it. And she knew if I wanted to be the best I could be, I need to surround myself with quality physical educators. Well, she came in and she noticed that some of my teammates, talked negatively about things that I was doing, and not like what it was, but the work you have to put in to do it, which is a lot sometimes. And she pushed through it, and she even talked to me about it because I told her, I said, hey, you might hear things from other people around me that don't approve with what I'm doing, and that's fine. If you want to talk about it, I'm here. Anyway, her and I clicked from the beginning, and she helped me grow in my teaching, and I helped her, and now we're teammates, right? And it's been interesting this year because I'm all distance teaching. She's at my school now leading the team of teacher, one or two that used to be with me. And she called me about halfway through the first month of teaching to have this exact conversation you're talking about. Randy, I don't know how to talk to these more experienced teachers about what I think we should be doing, what I think is best for our kids. And when we team teach, you have teachers around you that are making these decisions that you're just like, oh, man, that hurts us right now. Or that is not how we teach PE. I'm coming in 2 minutes. Okay, almost done. That was my kindergartner reminding me. Anyway, I would love to talk more about this specific topic with Kristen, but I told her you can't push too many buttons at once, right? So you're going to have to be silent with a lot of things you don't agree with. But if there's something deep down you really feel like could help what you're doing, go for it, but do it in a really subtle way. So what I did for all those years, rather than just saying, hey, this is what we're going to do and we're going to do it right now, I started to expose those new practices and new ideas in very small ways. And then I started to create questions like, what do you think? Or how can we add to this thing that I just created? So it's almost like you're tricking them into thinking that they're a part of it, but they also might, don't get me wrong, but having a way to make them feel like they have buy-in to what your ideas are and what you want to do to be the best you can, if that makes sense. And I'm sorry, I'd love to talk way more about this, but I got to get him to school. Here's Miss Kristen. I'm open to this whenever again. But awesome. That last question is gigantic, especially for our future of teaching. And, you could completely make that a one one lesson.
Yeah,
sit
I'll think
some
about
values.
that for next time for sure.
Yeah. And I'd love to bring Taylor in because it was a difficult time for her, and we had a good conversation. And anyway, that would be a great topic. Definitely for advocacy, So I gotta go. I'm so sorry, Matt. Thank you for.
Thanks, Randy.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for your communication. All the best, you guys. I'm an email away.
Thanks, Randy.
Yep, see you guys.
All right, I think kind of some good themes that are still coming and repeating from multiple people that we've talked to now. And I think I can kind of relate to Randy's situation, and I kind of put that question on Madeline's interviews because it is such a hard thing, and I know, and I knew he had gone through it. And so he gave you some really good nuggets of information on kind of how to change people. And True Vang kind of said the same thing, modeling by example. And it's all about the baby steps that you take. When you come in too headstrong, sometimes your message doesn't get heard. And I've made that mistake before. And I've learned from it, right? And his idea of, tricking, not really tricking, but like you sort of, I had this one teacher who I worked with, Sue Baker, and much older than me, had a strong reputation, but super old school PE, right? As soon as I started asking her questions and engaging with her, and I would kind of plug ideas into her head, pretty soon she thought the idea was hers, right? Like I made her think that she had, it was her vision. And so the idea that she kind of took ownership onto it then, but it was sort of like it was, and like he said, it's like a long process. I've made the mistake of coming in and like wanting things to be changed just like that and expecting like to be able to turn things around and accepting the idea that it takes time. What did he say? 5 to 6 years. And so just kind of being patient with that and knowing that it's a process and trying not to get like too hung up on like not being right where you want to be right now and appreciating like where you are and where your maybe school community is and like they're coming along with you. And True Vang made a really good point too. Like you have to appreciate like where other people are coming from. Like Sue Baker had 30 years and she was a recognized coach. And so she never really had to do anything with her teaching because she was getting so much satisfaction out of her and recognition for her coaching. And quite frankly, no one ever came in and observed her. She didn't even know what she was doing wrong. And so, questioning someone like that or bringing up new ideas, it can be really challenging for them. And maybe someday, like I always thought too, like I might be that person, right? Like if I'm in this for 30 years and someone else is coming in, like I kind of try to think about like, okay, how would I want someone to handle me? And so kind of giving yourself perspective on that. But I hope that you're starting to feel, the idea of like surrounding yourself. And, you've heard lots of different people talk about, quality PE and having positive influences around you, and hope you're starting to make those connections and feel that positivity with the interviews that we've had. Other thoughts about Randy? And I will tell you, he has revolutionized the way even I teach. Sam's in 265 right now, and Madeline's in 230. This idea of digital lessons and visuals for students, I'm making you do it now. Like, let's figure it out now. Let's do the hard stuff now while you have time, because when you get into the teaching world, just like Randy, like you're going to have such a limited amount of time to plan and prepare. So kind of like forcing you to get some of that work done now, I think is a super valuable thing. And hopefully it just like continues to grow and inspire you, and you'll just learn how to teach this like in this revolutionary, game-changing way that it took Randy like 6 years to get to. So yeah, it's he's done a ton for the profession and sharing. right, thoughts for the rest of the group?
I know, I think it was last fall, I actually observed with Randy. So I kind of got to see like firsthand a lot of his like use of like the projector and the gifts and everything. And it was just kind of like really crazy to see, like going from my previous like PE class experiences where there was like no technology used, and to all of a sudden see it where it was like, seemed like it was to the max, but it was super cool. And he actually had me like make some gifts with him, to like demonstrate different skills. And it was really cool because as we were like, as he would teach the activity, and then as the students were participating, he would leave the projector screen up with the gifts so that the students who, maybe were like, oh shoot, what's the next step? They would just look up at the projector and they could see. Or, if there was a question, Randy would kind of like walk around and kind of remind them like, look at the projector, it's up there. And so to like really see like a really structured, but like environment where like kids didn't feel like it was tedious was like a really cool experience for me. So like kind of seeing that technology being used firsthand was like really cool, like I said, for me anyway.